world filled with violence and things that violate God's word in the home, community, and in government. People are calling right wrong and wrong right, all the way to the White House. We need a remnant of holy men, a remnant of men that will pray, will attend prayer, standing in the gap. Today, prayer is one of the most least attended services in the church. And it should be the most attended service in the church. Because if you don't pray, you can't stay. Prayer is our lifeline. Prayer is what's going to help our families that are not saved get saved, help our families stay saved as we intercede for them. Prayer is what's going to help the world when they get tired of sin to find their way to God. The world needs our prayers. There's so much anger in the world today. There's so much disaster in the world today that we're living in. There's murder, so many types of things that are happening that we can't even imagine. There's witchcraft, all kinds of things that are happening in the world today that people are caught up in, and they need us to pray for them. Not just a simple prayer, but they need an intercessory prayer, someone who's crying out to God and pleading with God on the behalf of others that are not praying for themselves or can't get a prayer through, and they need us to pray. The world needs somebody to stand in the gap. The church needs somebody to stand in the gap. Where are the men that are standing in the gap? God is not looking for men that are trying to be something for themselves or for their own aggrandizement or to be celebrities. God is looking for men that will make a difference. You've heard the saying that Black Lives Matter. Well, all lives matter. And I'm pretty sure the statement was not saying that only Black lives matters, but that all lives matter. And God said that all souls are mine, and the soul that sinneth, it shall die. God is concerned about every soul. Souls do not have colors. It's just a soul. Souls do not have faces. It's just a soul. So God's concerned about every soul. We need to stand in the gap for our cities where there's crime and killings and more crime. We need to stand in the gap for them. We find that in the book of Peter, Peter was arrested and put in prison between two soldiers, and Herod was going to kill him the following day. He had already killed James with a sword, but prayer was made for Peter. Somebody was interceding for him, and God dispatched an angel and went into the prison and brought Peter out of the prison and when Peter came to the door where they were praying for him, and Rhoda came to answer the door and went to tell them that Peter was at the door knocking, they could not believe it. And they even said that you have seen his angel. But their prayers had been answered, that they interceded for him, and God released him. We just need somebody to pray. Esther stood in the gap for the nation of Israel when they were going to be annihilated. And she said, if I perish, I perish. She was truly standing in the gap. So not only men are needed to stand in the gap, but sisters can stand in the gap. Some may not have a saved husband, or he is AOL or MIA. She can stand in the gap for her children. She can stand in the gap for him. There was a time when my wife and I, in our early years, and our children were growing up, and the devil would come in and to begin to fight the kids, and they would have night terrors. And my wife would go in there and whip those devils so bad that they left, and my sons stopped having night terrors. So if you don't have a man, you can call on God. You can intercede for your children. You don't need a man to do that. And if he's an absentee father, then you take the role and you do it. Deborah the prophetess had said to Barak to go, that God was telling him to go and to fight the battle. He would give him the battle, would give him victory. And he said, I will not go except you go with me. And so Deborah said, I will go. But he got the victory through a woman. Don't ever let anybody say that women don't matter, because you do matter. You have more women in the church that are worshiping God than you do men. If your man won't stand, you stand. You're going to have to say, as for me and my house, if you're the only one in it, with your kids, you're going to have to say, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And if there's a man trying to come in your house and he doesn't love God and he doesn't have good intentions, you're going to have to tell that man, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Don't just give up on your families. Don't just give up on your marriage. Don't give it to the devil. Moses stood in the gap and said, Lord, if you're going to destroy the children of Israel, then destroy me too. That's the kind of standing in the gap that we need today. Like Moses was willing to give his life for his people. Those are the kind of pastors we need today that are standing in the gap to give their lives for their people, to give their lives for the saints. If it comes down to that they're willing to do it. Daniel kept standing in the gap, even though he knew there was a conspiracy against him, that if he prayed to any god or other than, or deity other than the king or the emperor at that time, that anyone that did that, made a petition of anyone else, would be thrown into the den of lions. Daniel knew about the conspiracy, but he did not let that make him stop praying 3 times a day, opening his window and praying 3 times a day and making intercession, because he was the true intercessor. Abraham stood in the gap for Sodom and Gomorrah, for his nephew, and God gave them the victory. Aaron stood in the gap to stop the plague, and God stopped it, because Aaron stood in the gap for them. Alfonso Coble at sbcglobal.net